Hey, Curtis,
Hey Oz,
what movie you got this week?
this week we're watching. It's gonna take me a lot to get this one out. This movie's so sad. We're watching the Cowboys. We're watching 200 cigarettes. We're going to LL Bean. More beans, Mr. Taggart. We're watching Brokeback Mountain. And scene.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another episode of Let's Talk About Flicks, podcast where we take a monthly theme. This month being Ouch.
Ouch.
And we're here to satisfy the ouch gods as we talk about Brokeback Mountain. I'm one of
Yep.
your hosts, Oz.
I am the other host, your thespian Curtis.
And before we get rolling, we definitely want to give a shout out to our Patreon subscribers, Don S., Aaron A., Mandy K., Melissa L., Colin K., and Lyle M. Thank you guys for your patronage.
Yes. Shout out to Chicago Indie Critics
Yes,
as well.
also shout out to the Chicago Indie Critics.
I'm looking at myself in the camera and I steamed my glasses.
You did
that.
steam your glasses.
Yeah.
So
that's called acting.
I'm very proud of you as you chose to keep that South Park episode out of your movie marriage.
Yes, I wasn't going to go there. Again, I hope none of our viewers mistake my opening movie marriage as cynicism of the movie. This is an amazing movie.
Oh, it really is. But great film.
Again, but with how Let's Talk About Flicks works, we like to have fun with whatever it is we're talking about. And
it's a comedy podcast.
This is a tough one to kind of have fun with. So
yeah, we talked last week too, about, kind of we wrapped up that you and I have our genres that we live in, and some we dabble in others. And a lot of times our genres cross over, horror, comedy, or, the things that, action horror or whatever, and drama is just
that's one that just you and I are just not inherently drawn to.
No,
not that there's great movies there. This is a prime example of that. It's just not one like, hey, let's throw in Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, like, it's like going on vacation and it rains a lot. You're still having a good time, but you know what? It's kind of a downer. And this movie is a just amazing film. Yeah. I'm glad I've seen it now. Will I watch it again? Probably not. Not because of the quality of the film, but it's just such a downer. Like, just amazing performances, out of both of our leads. It's
just gut punch after gut punch.
So sad.
Yeah,
so sad. And it really resonates with. It's still sad. Like, it sucks that this is, 62 years later and this kind of crap still sucks.
Yeah.
And 20 years after the movie and this stuff still sucks. And it's like, that sucks.
Everything sucks.
and it's like, it's rough. It's not a rough watch in the sense of, like Manos Hands of Fate or something like that. But
you texted me yesterday. You were watching the MST3K Final Justice.
I found that the people behind Riff Tracks and MST3K have an app on their smart TVs, and it used to be all free, but they've put some behind a paywall, which is fine. But like there are a lot of episodes in the first 10 seasons that are out. So I was just scrolling through it. My kids are looking at me like I'm some kind of moron. So I'm just like,
well, I mean, they're not wrong. But...
I'm like, Ega, girl in gold boots. Like, man, like, oh my God, I'm so excited. They're like, what? I'm like, because Puma Man's on. Yeah.
They're just looking at each other like, oh.
And so I started one and my son, he'd seen clips or whatever. So he was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, you're 10. Like, you probably aren't, you don't get it,
He's not ready for Jodan Baker and Final Justice.
Oh, but man. But my daughter was like, what's this? So I was explaining it. And she's just like mildly inquisitive. And in my mind, I'm like, you got to understand, like, this is part of the cool part. We'll get back, obviously, to the movie is like, my daughter's 14 and I don't remember a whole lot about like like mainstream impact on me as a person prior to like those teenage years.
Sure.
So I look at it, I'm like 14. That's probably about the time I started watching MST3K.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was on Sci-Fi or Comedy Central. Like that's probably about the time. So in my mind, I'm like, I need to cut her some slack. Like, yeah, she's my child, but she's my teenage child. Like I can open a few more doors here, and I have. Like we've watched all of the Scream movies together, and she loves them. But it's like I can start doing that now, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hence Napoleon Dynamite yesterday.
Yeah. You think you can take me?
Go head on. The problem is, and I love my daughter so much, is when you watch a movie or when you watch anything with her, it's 20 questions on steroids.
Sure.
And that has irritated my wife and I her entire existence. Just sit and watch the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like even Napoleon Dynamite yesterday. Why is she wearing her hair like that? I don't know. Like, these are not questions that have answers.
Can Uncle Rico really throw a football over that mountain?
Right. It's like just, but those kind of questions, like, well, obviously you can't, you know, but for her it'd be like, why does that keychain look like that? I don't know. Just don't worry about it. She did find, I think, one of the funniest parts of Napoleon Dynamite that she found was when the old farmer's coming to kill the cow, and then the school bus pulls up right as he shoots that thing in the head.
I forgot about that.
And so, and she's like, "Oh, all those kids just saw that." I'm like, "Yep, they did." So, speaking of cowboys,
speaking of cowboys, Brokeback Mountain. Ouch.
Yes.
That would ouch.
Yeah.
Broke your back.
On a mountain.
On a mountain. Yes, on a mountain nonetheless.
Because then they have to airlift you out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I got the cast of this.
Yeah. Who's in Brokeback Mountain? This movie's almost 20 years old.
I know. This is actually, it's one of those where two people matter.
Mm-hmm.
You got two ancillary characters that matter.
Yeah.
But they still, like, Ang Lee still pulled out the stops, and it's like, hey, you want to, you know, like, there's some names in this movie.
And some names who weren't yet
they
names
weren't quite names, but
on the verge of becoming names.
But still, I think it's cool where you see them of like, they weren't their names now, they weren't then, but it's like you still were swimming in the right pool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. He and whoever was casting this movie knew how to find the right talent.
Yeah, it's like when you see David Harbour on this, you know, on this cast list, that's great. You don't see David Harbour on a trauma cast list.
Sizzle Beach, USA.
Exactly. Like, you know, some of them came up the Ang Lee way, and then you've got, you know, the I knew I drew a blank as soon as I needed it. You know, it's like the Gun brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you come up the trauma way.
Yeah.
We have our main two protagonists, your Jack and Rose characters on the poster.
Mm-hmm.
Heath Ledger as Enos Del Mar and Jake Gyllenhaal as Jack Twist. Easily Heath Ledger is your main character in this film.
Yeah.
But Jake is like 1A.
Yeah.
You know, and so those two are our main love interests. They each are married to Heath Ledger being married to Michelle Williams and Jake Gyllenhaal being married to Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. As Alma and Lureen.
Mm-hmm.
Good old, like Jake at least.
It's a great Texas name, Lureen.
Yeah, it's like Jake Gyllenhaal got away easy with Jack. You got Enos and Alma and Lureen. Randy Quaid being one of our first characters we see in the movie. I didn't know he was in this. Is Joe Aguirre. It's kind of the temp agency. Basically.
The rancher temp.
Exactly. But we see like Linda Cardellini show up. We see Anna Faris show up. We see David Harbour show up. We see Kate Mara show up. And so, there's talent all throughout this movie. You know, there's no weak link in this cast. I didn't even recognize David Harbour nor Anna Faris.
Yeah.
I did the more they showed David Harbour, I did. When I saw Anna Faris in the credits, I was like, Anna Faris is in this movie?
Yeah.
So I didn't recognize her. So but so this is a story that you're going to obviously tell us about, but one that you know, when you look at some of the other names that were potentially attached to this film,
yeah, I saw that.
You know, Matt Damon, Joaquin Phoenix, Leo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Josh
Hartnett,
Ryan Philippe. You know, it's, you know, it just, you really see the quality. When I was reading the trivia and stuff, there is a huge difference between Hollywood performers and Hollywood like thespians.
Yeah.
There was one bit of trivia I'm sure you saw it too, where, you know, the script was given to Mark Wahlberg and Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, I could not see Mark Wahlberg in this movie.
And Mark Wahlberg turned it down because he was just creeped out by it, which doesn't honestly surprise me at all.
Not a big shocker there.
But it's like, this is, you know, that's not my bread and butter. But then Joaquin Phoenix, I guess it never got to him because Wahlberg turned it down. But Phoenix was like, I would have taken that role in a heartbeat. Like, just, I don't care about the stigma attached. It's, for him, it was a chance to act.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Joaquin Phoenix, Heath Ledger, even Jake Gyllenhaal, I easily put those guys in a category, you know, with your Daniel Day-Lewis, your Jeremy Irons, you know, just...
Well, yeah, Heath Ledger in particular, and I got a feeling that's going to come back up later in the show from at least one of us, but yeah, Heath Ledger acted the butt off of this movie.
Yeah, it's... just wonder, were there times where Ang Lee's like, cut, great job, Heath, give us a little less.
Yeah.
So it really like, if this is the level of devotion he gives to his roles, Brokeback Mountain, Dark Knight,
yeah.
It's like, what was A Knight's Tale like? You know, like, just relax. Have fun. Have fun. It's okay.
Have a good time on that horse.
We're gonna do it again. Like, no, have fun. I didn't like what direction the splinters went from that joust. Just have fun.
Just have a good time.
So that's the cast of this movie.
Yeah, let's get into the plot.
What's this Sunshine movie about?
This happy-go-lucky, laissez-faire movie.
Real plucky.
I know, plucky. We started in 1963 in very, very rural Wyoming. We meet Ennis.
Isn't everywhere in Wyoming
that is
very,
true.
very
I think, isn't Wyoming like the least populated state in America?
And it's massive.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like the 8th largest, but it's the least populated.
Right. Yeah.
I actually Facebook knows that I like maps. Their algorithm knows that I like looking at maps, which is a really nerdy thing to do.
That's okay.
But it's figured it out.
Cartography is important.
That's what the algorithm does. And so I get these like these things that scroll up from like maps and like, did you know U.S. geography facts, and it was talking about like, why is Wyoming so much less populated than Colorado, which is approximately the same size, just to the south, and a lot of it had to do with the gold rush in the mid 19th century, how there was more precious gems found in Colorado than Wyoming. And so it just more people flocked to that area. There's a little bit of like
never left.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like geography and terrain involved as well, but like it's had to do with the gold rush. So
which is it's just kind of crazy. Well, and it's crazy when you think like the gold rush wasn't anytime recent. Like that it's like
200 years ago now.
Those seeds were planted a couple hundred years ago, and we still. It's like everybody looks, it's like, oh, Wyoming is so beautiful and it's so open. It's like, and you can move there. Like, it's okay. Like, oh, no, I can't do that. My family came here 200 years ago.
We got roots.
Right? Like, I just can't go. So, but yeah, Wyoming it's a beautiful state.
Yeah. So we open there. We meet Ennis. He arrives in this very small town, hitching a ride with a semi. Jack drives up in an old pickup truck. You immediately notice, at least I immediately noticed their posture. Ennis's posture was very closed off, shoulders in, chin down, where, Jack pulls up and is almost kind of peacocking a little bit. For Ennis, like his shoulders are very wide. He kind of puts his arm up.
Yeah, I'd say leaning on the
his
bed
truck,
of the pickup, and
kind of almost like pointing his hips at him, and and again, this was my second time watching this movie, and although I will say the first time was in the theater almost 20 years ago.
Right.
but I at least had a basic understanding of the plot and the character going in. And so I was trying to watch for some of these cues from these characters. And man, I just so much more appreciated the acting from these two.
Not only that, but when you think about it, like Ang Lee's prior film was The Hulk. It's like to go like, so The Hulk is a fun Marvel movie.
Yeah, it's uneven, but it
right,
does
but it's fun. But you look at it, it's like, this is the same guy that I was like, I'm going to go from the Hulk to this, and like, so he's very credible director.
Yeah. Well, and I think prior to that, I think was Crouching Tiger. So and the Ice Storm prior to that. So like So they both accept jobs through Dennis Quaid, of all people, in this movie, which it's funny to connect like Dennis Quaid, especially now that you really see what
the real Dennis Quaid.
Yes. Yeah. And in this movie, and I don't know, I got a feeling that the real Dennis Quaid kind of came out in his performance in some ways.
Yeah, I think so. Of like, yeah. And he's like, get me out of this film.
Exactly. I guess there was some lawsuit about money or something too with Dennis Quaid. I was reading in the trivia.
I saw that, and he because it was supposed to be like this, like indie, like this non, it's like they didn't plan on it making any money kind of thing.
I don't want anybody to see me in this game movie.
Right. And so I guess like he, from what you saw, like he brought up a lawsuit against the studio and then dropped the lawsuit. And when they talked to the lawyers, they're like, we never settled. Like, we're just as, him dropping it was just as mysterious as bringing it up. Like,
okay, Dennis Quaid.
Right.
So he I don't know, like owns. Again, I don't know exactly how this industry works.
I don't either.
But like he owns this flock of sheep or something like that, and so he hires Ennis and Jack to basically be shepherds.
Yeah.
To watch over them for several months.
Right.
Out in the wilderness.
One of you, at night, one of you is at base camp.
Yeah.
And the other one sleeps with the sheep.
Yeah, because you have to comply, I think, with like DNR or something like that. And so he's trying to skirt the rules a little bit. So basically, it starts there. Of course, Ennis is just very distant and he's there for the job. And, Jack's trying to make conversation. We learn he doesn't like his father. He's in a rodeo. Ennis eventually opens up. His parents died in a car accident. The bank took the ranch. He grew up very poor.
Yeah.
He was raised by his siblings, but then, they kind of did their own thing. And he is engaged to a woman back home, Alma. But yeah, they aren't able to interact too much during the day because of these rules that they comply with. And eventually they decide, you know what, let's just, whatever.
We're out here. Let's
just stay in this together with the flock. And so one of them doesn't have to basically do a 4-hour round trip commute every day.
Right.
So we learn a little bit more about him. Ennis eventually opens up, dropped out of high school. Jack even points out that you just said more words to me than, or no, Ennis says, I just said more words than I've said to anybody in over a year.
Yeah.
So it's over time. Again, there's not a lot of dialogue for Act 1 here, especially early in Act 1. It's more just vistas and it's interacting with the landscape as if the landscape is a character in and of itself. Wilderness, Wyoming, and one night Ennis falls asleep, kind of drunk by the fire, but again he's not in a tent, and so he's literally shivering, and Jack hears him, and so he just come on in the tent with me.
Right.
And while they're in there, Jack kind of pulls Ennis's arm onto him, and they end up having sex.
Yeah.
The next morning, Ennis just kind of leaves without a word. Gets to the flock, notices one of the sheep was killed because they got there a little late. The next night, Ennis just kind of says that was a one-shot thing, but Jack responds, "It's nobody's business but ours." And they both deny being gay.
Right.
But then later on, Ennis goes back into Jack's tent again. And this time they have sex again, but it's more passionate.
Yeah.
And it's more tender. And it just, we start following them week after week. Joe, so the Dennis Quaid character, is kind of checking on him from a distance, and he observes them kind of running around shirtless, just kind of like wrestling and just kind of doing that. And he ends up, they have to bring in the herd early, which upsets Innes, of course, because it means not as much money.
Right.
But Joe admonishes them for not bringing enough back. As they're about to part ways, Innes complains to Jack about leaving a shirt on a mountain. Like, I can't believe I left my shirt up there. Jack is trying to convince Innes, like, hey, why don't you come back and work again next year? We could do this again next year. And Innes just kind of says, I guess I'll see you around.
Right.
Jack drives off, and there is an incredibly powerful little scene of Jack. He just kind of ducks into a building and just falls to his knee. Or, sorry, did I say Jack? Innes. Yeah, Innes, after Jack drives away, just kind of ducks into this little like alcove of a building and just falls to his knees and just weeps.
Yes.
Just weeps. Trying to make sense of what's happened, trying to make sense of his feelings.
At a passerby. And...
just screams at a guy who walks by. Punches the wall. I guess that wasn't scripted, and he almost broke it. Heath Ledger almost broke his hand.
Yeah, it's like that's a real building.
Yeah,
it's not a prop.
That is concrete, Mr. Ledger. But yeah, just really powerful scene, and he's like dry heaving, like he's just he's so upset and sad and angry, and just all of these feelings just hit him at once. And trying to sort through all of these things, he just doesn't know how to make sense of it.
Right.
You know, should I have said more to Jack? You know, I get the sense there's a lot of shoulds.
Yes.
In this movie.
Yeah, a lot of dropped opportunity.
Yeah. So we fast forward in time, as we do a couple of times in this movie. As we cut to a kind of a stoic Innes and Alma at their wedding ceremony, getting married. We see kind of some time jumps here as well. They go sledding. They're at the drive-in. Innes is kind of working laying roads. They end up having 2 daughters, pretty close in age. I did put in all caps here, trope alert. We have both daughters crying as the parents are wearily tending to them.
Yeah.
That whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, the marriage, the state of the marriage reflects the state of this moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, talk about a backfire for Naomi Watts. Like, you know, I saw that like she and Ledger were dating at the time, and she like, you need to take that role. That's a great role. Which then he meets Michelle Williams, and then they fall in love, and they have a kid, and it's like poor Naomi's left in the dust. She landed on her feet. She's doing just fine, but it's still like, oh man. Cut to Naomi Watts huddled in an alley,
punching a wall and weeping on her knees,
like dry heaving. Stop looking at me.
So, we do see them trying to be intimate together, but and again, I don't know if I noticed this the first time I watched it, but definitely did this time. So she's trying to be intimate with him, and they do end up making love, but he insists on turning the lights off, and without getting too graphic, because it's a PG podcast, he turns her over. And again, you can put 2 and 2 together as to why that might appeal to him.
They got a couple of kids, so it's not like they haven't been in before.
Correct. But that's what that's what sparked him.
Right.
We then cut to one of the moments in this movie that I think sticks out, from the marketing and just from some of the memorable moments from this movie. They go to a local fireworks display. I think it's a 4th of July celebration, and Innes and his family are on the blanket on the hill watching the fireworks, and a couple of bikers come up and are just cursing and just kind of being disruptive to everybody around you, just mindless of the people there. And Innes politely asks them, "Hey, I got my daughters here. Can you stop?" And of course they don't give a polite response.
No.
So Innes ends up like punching both of them and runs them off. And as he's standing there kind of triumphantly, we get that amazing shot of the fireworks, red, white, and blue fireworks just going off behind him. So
America. Yeah.
I want red, white, and blue fireworks to go off whenever I punch people out.
Same. I'll be there for you.
Yeah, with a hot dog in my mouth and a slice of apple pie in hand.
Can we we start with sparklers? Because I don't have the budget for as many people as you punch.
I mean, you don't have pyrotechnics just on standby there?
No.
I have a guy that I just insist that follows me around.
And it's a little, you got to remember to keep facing forward, because every time you knock someone out, and then when you turn and look over your shoulder, and the fireworks aren't there, like
yes, keep shoulders square to the camera.
Yeah.
Hands on hips triumphantly, chin up.
It's like American Dad.
Basically, yeah, you're not wrong. We see Ennis drops the kids off to Alma at her grocery store job so he can go to work. Kind of gives that, there's a power imbalance.
Yeah.
Between the two there. The kids accidentally knock over a display, and the store manager is very quick to forgive Alma.
Yeah.
Something, again, I didn't notice the first time through, but noticed the second time through for reasons we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
You were laughing there at the notice of a store display getting knocked over.
Just because it's like the equivalent of like, hey, here's like a tower of beer cans. I'm going to pull the bottom one out. Like this display wasn't just I knocked a can off the shelf. It's I destroyed this entire end cap display.
Yeah, and it was like glass bottles of some kind of liquid, like gravy or something like that.
Yeah, it was just such a major mess.
Yeah. I will say in my notes here to our viewers, I am not quite going linearly with the movie, especially during Act 2.
Right.
Because it is for most of the movie when the characters aren't together, you get a lot of bouncing back and forth between the two. And so just for the simplicity of telling the story, this will not be completely linear with the movie. Presumably the next summer, Jack pulls up to Randy Quaid's place. I think I was calling him Dennis earlier. To Randy Quaid's place and asks if he has work up on Brokeback. And the Joe character just responds with a lot of contempt in his voice.
Yes.
I ain't got no work for you.
Right. Wasn't even in the script.
They didn't even know the cameras were rolling.
Yeah, Randy's just being Randy.
I ain't got no work for you.
Right.
And so and Jack kind of puts his head down and goes to leave, and then just asks, "Hey, have you seen Enos?" And the Randy, I keep calling him that, the Randy Quaid character responds, "You boys sure found a way to pass time up there," implying that he knew what was happening, and then he just kicks him out.
Which cut to several nights in a row that Randy Quaid's up there with his binoculars. I've got a log of all the times, which makes who worse?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was watching you boys. Were you?
Every night, every
night. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So sometime later, we see Jack kind of struggling in a rodeo event. That evening at a bar, this scene, really short scene, but this one sticks out to me too.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the bar, and a guy who was a rodeo clown at the rodeo is also there, of course, out of makeup. It would have been funnier if he was in makeup.
I agree.
In character.
He goes, "Hey, don't you work the rodeo?"
Just honks his nose. And so he hits on him. Jack hits on this the guy who's the rodeo clown, and he picks up on it, and he immediately leaves the bar and goes over to talk to a handful of other men, and Jack very quickly gets out of there. At another event, Jack meets barrel rider Lorene, played by, again, Anne Hathaway, which inspires Jack to kind of give a great performance, his best ever on a bull. Later, we get a bartender expositioning to Jack that Lorene's father is wealthy, sells large farm equipment, and he's very sweet to her as she goes after him at the car, Oz.
Yeah.
I forgot about that scene.
But yeah, so, Lorene likes...
She's very aggressive.
Well, and she, when you get the vibe that coming from a rich Texan household, I get what I want.
Yeah, that's well stated. I didn't quite frame it that way, but you're right. So again, we get a time jump here with them. We fast forward. They have a son. There's so many little scenes in this movie that I just love, and the one where it's Lorene and Jack home with their son, presumably for the first time, and her parents come over.
Yeah,
and you meet her parents.
Ugh.
Very, very rich. They walk in, they walk right by Jack, don't say hi, don't make eye contact. Mom has kind of like the stereotypical, like kind of big Texan, like kind of updo, and Dad just kind of throws his keys back to Jack, calls him Rodeo. Hey, Rodeo, I forgot the gifts in the car. Go get them.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's very entitled.
Yes. And of course you hear Lorraine's father, isn't that boy spitting image of Grandpa?
Exactly.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Very entitled. Yeah. Cut back to Ennis and Alma. Alma tells Ennis he received a postcard from Jack. Ennis lies, says they were old fishing buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Jack arrives to pick up Ennis, and they embrace right outside of their apartment and share an incredibly passionate kiss. Like tear your head off passionate.
I think this scene was the inspiration. No, Smash Mouth was around before this scene, but but anyway, this is they were like, you know what? We did pick a good name for our band.
Yes, yeah, Smash Mouth. Break your teeth.
Exactly.
Alma sees this, Oz.
Yeah. They didn't do a very good job of hiding.
Well, yeah, they did.
They kind of hid from the road, but not from view.
Like Alma had just stepped out onto like the porch or something, and she saw it. They didn't see her see it,
right?
But she saw it. We see that Jack and Ennis at a motel, kind of post-coital, and Jack tells Ennis, "Brokeback got us good." Ennis responds with, "There's nothing we can do. Making a living is about all I got time for right now," which really kind of sets the theme for most of the rest of the movie here. Next morning, Ennis arrives home to a very worried Alma. He hurriedly packs. We're going fishing with Jack. He's waiting outside. Alma calls on Ennis for taking off work for Jack, but not for her.
Right. Yeah.
He kisses the daughter and then just hands the crying daughter to Alma so he can scurry out the door.
Yeah.
Setting
the stage of not a good dad, like not a bad dad, but just absentee. And
well, when Jack's there, and again, there's I mean both characters, especially Ennis, there's a macho-ness to him, especially Ennis. There's some kind of stereotypical male entitlement and gender roles and things like that, and dropping the kids off to her at work so he can go to work, and they go back up to Brokeback. Jack suggests they get a place together, and Ennis just says it ain't gonna be that way. If this thing grabs a hold of us in the wrong place in the wrong time, we're dead. And then we see a story, so we hop into the past.
Right.
We see a story that Ennis is narrating, that when he was a child, there were two men in town who were very, very speculated to be in a gay relationship together. They had moved in together, and one of these two presumably gay men was found dead in a field by a tire iron, and Ennis's father brought Ennis and one of his brothers to see the dead body to indicate this is what happens.
Yeah.
Again, another one of those just kicking the groin moments in this movie. So yeah, and it's even and this even speculates my dad might have been involved in that, because how else would he have known where to go?
Yeah.
Ugh. Like before the coroner arrives and things like that. Ugh. We get a great scene that I'll tell you right now is going to come up later for me if you don't claim this one, of between Lorraine and Jack and at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, it's all yours.
Yeah. So really powerful scene. I'll get into it more a little bit later, but basically Jack finally stands up to her parents, and it's quite a moment.
Right.
At home, Ennis and Alma are arguing. Alma gets another postcard from Jack to Ennis. See you in a couple weeks. Fish should be jumping. Alma tells Ennis forgetting something as he almost leaves without bringing his fishing supplies. Jack is very excited to see Ennis at the Brokeback site. Cut to a divorce hearing, Oz.
Yeah.
Alma's leaving Ennis.
She's had enough.
Yeah. Again, she never lets on that she knew, but yeah. Again, Jack excitedly is awaiting Ennis. At one point after this, he knows of the divorce. He asks Ennis to move in with him. I kind of thought that you went through this divorce so we could be together, and Ennis just tells Jack, I can't.
Right.
You know, I got 2 girls, and Jack just weeps as he drives away.
Yeah, I've got, I don't have custody, but I see him once a month. Like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Don't have the time.
Jack ends
There's
up
never the time.
Yeah, never the time. That's again another theme in this movie. And Jack ends up driving to Mexico, presumably is being promiscuous with other men to kind of fill this emotional void. We actually, here is where we get that Thanksgiving scene.
Vehicles get really good gas mileage in this film. You figured Jack's in Texas, who's constantly driving to Wyoming, to go to Brokeback. Now, it's not as far for Anus as it is for Jack. And then he's like, I'm just going to leave Wyoming and drive down to Mexico real quick.
Yeah. I'll be back tomorrow. It's a quick commute.
It's fine.
Not a lot of traffic this time of day.
Yeah, it's like, how long were you gone?
Juxtaposed the scene of Jack just going off at his father-in-law with Alma and her new husband Monroe, who was the grocery store manager. They and the girls are hosting Ennis for Thanksgiving, and Alma's doing the dishes afterwards. Ask Ennis, "You still going fishing with Jack? How come you never brought any fish home?"
The girls and I like fish.
Yeah, we like fish. She ended up at one point tying a note to the end of the fishing pole that said, "Hey, bring home fish," and that note was still there.
Yeah.
When he came back, and she calls Jack nasty, and Ennis finally knows that she's known all this time, threatens to hit her, and just storms out. Again, just really powerful moment. You just see how upset he is, and just how it finally occurs to him how this has really impacted the relationship that he had with Alma, and how that really disintegrated.
Leaves the daughters in tow again. I think it was a smart kind of secondary theme throughout the thing of, there goes Ennis leaving his girls again, as they chase him out the door. Bye, Daddy, bye. And he doesn't even register that they're there. And it's like, just there's just his inability to father.
Yeah,
comes up later.
Yeah. We get another Jack and Ennis trip. This time they're much more distant. Jack's talking business a lot. Ennis asks Jack if Lorene ever suspects, and Jack doesn't think so.
Right.
Ennis says, "I feel like everybody I meet knows." So that really gives some insight into Ennis's character, that he's just paranoid and scared.
Right.
Jack asks Ennis, "Why don't you move to Texas?" And no, I can't. We got our families, and Jack's angry. Jack's very angry. Ennis meets Cassie, Linda Cardellini's character. We get that kind of juxtaposed with Jack and Lorene sitting at a, I think it's like a benefit dance.
Yeah, I felt that way. Some hoity-toity rich people thing.
Yes, exactly.
That Jack is not, he's never really been in that crowd, but he's drug into that crowd.
Well, he married into that crowd.
Exactly.
And so we meet LaShawn and Randall Malone, Anna Faris and David Harbour. Jack and Randall eye each other up
quick
as they're sitting there having dinner, and they go to sit outside together, and while they're smoking together outside, Randall invites Jack to a weekend at his boss's very remote cabin
to go fishing.
Yeah. Fish are jumping. We get another time jump here, and I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit. We get another time jump, probably a good 8 to 10 years into the future. We see Alma Jr., now played by Kate Mara, she goes on a date with Ennis and Cassie. She's very soft spoken, just very similar to Ennis, and kind of how she presents. And Ennis, Cassie asks Ennis to move in, and I ain't set up for that. I'll never be home. He just kind of dismisses her.
Right.
Back at Brokeback, they're together up there again, and Jack shoots Ennis a look when Ennis asks how Jack's marriage is going, and it's going very poorly.
Yeah.
And Jack just tells Ennis, "Sometimes I miss you so much I can hardly stand it. Like, there ain't ever enough time." Ennis says, I can't take off work. And that's where we get, one of those classic lines from this movie. Jack says, like, "We could have had a happy life together. I wish I could quit you."
Yeah.
And Ennis just screams back, "It's because of you that I'm like this." And Jack goes to hug and console Ennis, who initially just pushes him away, but eventually they embrace as Ennis just falls to his knees and weeps as they hug. Again, this movie just hits hard.
It does. It does.
It just hits. Sometime later, we see Cassie with another man running into Ennis at a diner. Implies Cassie left him because he was just keeping a bit distant and dismissive.
Too distant, yeah.
Yeah. Ennis is going through the mail, gets a postcard he had sent to Jack, comes back, and it's marked deceased.
Mm-hmm.
So Ennis calls Lorene, first time they've ever communicated directly. Right. And over the phone, she says, Jack died. He was just changing a tire on the side of the road. The tire exploded in his face, broke his nose, knocked him out, and he ended up drowning basically in his own blood.
Right.
Yeah, just kind of a freak accident. However, while she's telling this, we see from Ennis's perspective what he thinks happened, and it's very similar to the scene from his childhood when his dad brought him to see the body. So in Ennis's mind, he's created this scenario where Jack was found out.
Yeah.
He was outed to be gay and was beaten to death by tire irons by several men.
And of whether course, or not, I was going to say, we're left to not know the full truth either way.
Yeah.
You know, just how distant and dry Lorene was even when she was telling him.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of camera kept cutting to her as she's just real monotone and emotionless in her delivery, to where it's like, is she telling the truth? We never find out.
So I was reading somewhere that they shot Anne Hathaway twice, and they told her, okay, in this take, you don't know about Jack's relationship with Ennis, but in this one you do.
Okay.
So and I guess it was left to the viewer discretion as to does she or doesn't she know.
Right.
And she's even said that some of the cuts were from one take and some were from the other, to intentionally kind of keep you guessing, which is slick on Ang Lee's part. During this conversation, she says that Jack brought up Brokeback whenever he was drunk. It was his favorite place. He wants some of his ashes spread there. So Ennis goes to Jack's parents and offers to take ashes up to Brokeback. Jack's dad is incredibly skeptical of Ennis. The mom is warm enough.
She's warm,
yeah.
But almost like there's nothing we can do about it now.
Yeah, like the dad never gets up from the table, just kind of give him like kind of a side eye stare the whole time. The mom lets Ennis go up to Jack's childhood bedroom, and as he's kind of going through things, he walks into the closet, and in the very back of the closet, he sees Jack's denim shirt that he wore up to Brokeback that summer 20 years ago. And inside of that denim shirt is Ennis's flannel that he thought he left upon the mountain. And just, I'm emotionally wrecked at this point. Ennis just grabs the sleeve and just puts it up to his face, and he's weeping. Jack's mother allows him to keep the shirt. It's kind of implied that she knows why. It's never explicitly said.
Right.
And then we get kind of a little epilogue scene here. Several years later, Alma Jr. comes to Ennis's trailer. She's getting married. After he initially hesitates, I got work commitments, but I'm going to go see my daughter get married. So after she leaves, Ennis opens this little closet in his trailer, and there's the shirts, this time though with his flannel over Jack's denim shirt. And he just breaks down and weeps, and just, Jack, I swear, as the music swells and credits roll, and at this point I'm just a sobbing mess. Oh God, that folks is Brokeback Mountain. Amazing movie, but oh man, does this one hit hard?
Yes, very hard, and it's all in the direction, and it's all in Heath Ledger.
Oh my God, what a movie, guys. Ooh, as I take a big exhale here, and we come back to the fun segments in our show.
And I think that's one of the bigger downers is when we're talking about a heavy film like this that deserves its thing. Like you and I we're just hysterical people. Like, we are just so funny.
I think so. I know Patreon subscriber Melissa agrees.
And so we're just hilarious. And so we really have to pull back the reins so that we're not, crapping on a film like that. It's like, because to be fair, there are no funny parts in this movie. Like,
no, there's no knee slapping moments. Yeah. There's no guffaws.
Yeah, it's like even Randy Quaid is like, yeah, no Cousin Eddie here. Like,
S words full.
All right, it's so it's you almost I always feel just a tinge of guilt when we get to our bits after a heavy film like this, because it's like, well, we try to be a comedy podcast, and it's like,
Well, I know we did the same thing. Like Secretary is another movie that we've done that comes to mind, which Secretary does have some dark humor in it.
It does.
But, this is just a straight up drama.
And, this is heavy.
Yeah. So at this point in the show, Oz and I give our own unique rating to the film we've been yapping about. Hey, Oz, how would you rate 2005's Brokeback Mountain?
I'm going to give it 1,000 sheep.
1,000 sheep.
1,000 sheep.
That's a great score there, Oz.
What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it 92 cans of baked beans.
What kind?
Bush's. Is there any other kind?
Of course, yeah.
Next up, Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs, searching for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones, and we hope they tickle yours as well in our next segment, Outside Insights. Oz, what is your Outside Insight?
I have 3.
Let's hear them.
They're all short because, again, this is one of those movies that I didn't swim in the negative comments. Normally, I try to go the opposite of how I feel. Mm-hmm. This is a great film, so I try to go in the low end. I didn't want to even look at the low end because I had a feeling where a lot of the low end comments live.
Oh, I did. Good. So, but I'll let you go first.
So my first one is from Christian M, which is an interesting name. It's a 5-star review, and it says, "For those who care, this does come with a slipcover." The DVD comes with a slipcover, for those who care. Okay. My second one is from Liam, also on Amazon. 5-star review, great movie. And the review says, "Good movie."
Very insightful and informative.
Yeah. And it covered all his bases there.
Yeah.
The title is Great Movie, only to be surprised with it's just a good
movie. Great movie, good movie.
And my third one comes from Letterboxd, from Ariana. It says, when something bad happens to me, I rewatch Brokeback Mountain so that I can feel even worse.
Oh, what a way to live your life there, Ariana.
And I like the play on that, because obviously it'd be one that, like, if something bad happens, I rewatch Brokeback Mountain so I could see it could be worse.
Gives me some perspective on what the real worst case scenario could be.
Just so it could hurt a little more. It's like everything's worse with a paper cut or a headache,
Yeah.
Like, this is like, I feel terrible, so I'm going to watch Brokeback just to feel even worse.
Yeah, then I'm going to just put some hand soap in my eyes.
Exactly. So those are my 3 outside insights. What do you got?
I got one, and I did go there. It's not as awful as it could be, but as always, this is from the Internet Movie Database, and it's a 1 out of 10.
From Christian.
Yeah, from Bourgeois Ingrid.
Oh, okay. Fancy Ingrid.
Left in April of 2006 with the subject line, "Disappointed." I cannot begin to express how disappointed I was by this movie. It was so fake and forced that I was truly disgusted. Every single minute was another forced emotional sentimental act. It was like, look, America's gays have feelings too. Ah! Let's not forget the fact that every darn time one of them would ride off, the other one would just stand there for a few minutes, awing and gazing lovingly as the other partner rides off into the distance. It made me want to vomit. P.S. I'm not homophobic. My best friend is gay. He was also disappointed by the plot line.
They played both cards back to back. I'm not racist. I have a black friend.
That is exactly what I thought as I read that. I can't be homophobic. I have a gay friend.
Yeah.
By the transitive property.
Right. Like, guys, why would a homophobe have a gay friend?
Yeah.
So you could trust my insight.
Legally, I can't be homophobic.
You can't pin me to that.
because people who aren't homophobic always find the need to point out that they're not homophobic.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like doing CrossFit or being vegan.
That's how I usually introduce myself to new people. Yeah. Hey, my name's Curtis, by the way, not homophobic.
Or racist.
Or racist. Yeah.
So you can rest easy with me.
Yes.
I always do that I always make sure I say both those things if I meet like a gay black person.
Yes, all the time.
Hey. And I try to speak in Ebonics as much as possible.
Yes.
Just so that they can let their guard down and know they're with a friend.
And how effective is that?
Yeah.
I've only been tased 7 times.
Right. But it's what they do.
Yeah. I'm empowering them to tase me.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
Oh, God. Hey, folks, it is that time for the Let's Talk About Flicks signature segment. I'm just rolling with this, Oz, just leaning in. Where Oz and I, our signature segment, the 3, 2, 1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about this week's movie, 2005's Brokeback Mountain. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
My first one is titular line. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal, like, just spits it out.
Yep.
Like, at one point, he looks right at Enos and says, "This movie's called Brokeback Mountain." Like, and it was they were quite a ways into the film before they got it. I mean, there was always, and like I've said before, I don't give credence to mentions of like the title, like Brokeback Mountain, but like when it's like when you could tell it is purposely put into a line. I enjoy that. So titular line.
What's a movie that doesn't have a titular line that should?
I know I talked about it before, like Upright. Yeah, it was Upright Citizens Brigade did that
Star Wars thing.
Did that sketch,
which Star Wars.
Right, can't wait to get out of Africa.
This fiction is so pulpy,
right? And so, but no, I mean, I think all movies should have a titular line. They all movie should have it. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you think of the marketing and branding opportunities here.
What is that? Is that Captain Cornelius' mandolin? Yeah, it is.
Man, I am feeling the wrath of Khan right now.
Right. I have Jaws too. And so my first good is titular line. My second one is I'm glad this movie was a box office success.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, for a lot of people, it takes courage and bravery to go watch a movie like this. Unfortunately. And so the fact that this was a success, I think it's great. Because it was an indie film. It was like a Fox Spotlight film, or it come from their indie studio. So it probably wasn't expected to make, as much as it did. It's like 10 times.
Ask Randy Quaid.
Yeah.
He didn't want people to see him in this movie.
Right. I mean, it made like 10 times its budget. Like, it was a hit. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was like the highest grossing film in that studio, like Fox Searchlight's, stable. And it's like, good for them, but at the same time, it didn't feel like Oscar bait. Even though, I could easily see some people, chalking it up to that. It didn't, to me at least, it didn't really feel like it felt like we have a story to tell.
Yeah. I agree.
And so I'm glad that it was a box office success. And then the third is just the cinematography. I stayed pretty generic with the goods because there was only 3. Like, I could have said the performances, but I mean, I think that's a given. So I went with the cinematography, much like, like a Lord of the Rings. Like, Wyoming is beautiful. Yeah. And so it's not hard making it look beautiful. And so, good on that. But at the same time, we were in and out of, like, we're seeing, Jack at a gala. We're seeing Enos living in a trailer. Like, they really did a great job of conveying the scenes, and how they shot them.
Yeah, well, and like the set pieces, I thought were great, especially with it being a period piece. And,
right. So those are my three goods. What do you got?
My three goods. I am going to lean into the acting.
No, you go for it.
My goodness, Heath Ledger puts on an acting clinic in this movie. I mean, say what you will about actors, but like, man, I could not imagine anybody else in that role at this point other than Heath Ledger. Like, he made understatement be more, and like stoicism feel more powerful and emotional than I could ever imagine watching a movie.
The downside of that is, unfortunately, we've lost Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Because you get the vibe that when you are that level of performer, it's not a switch. It's not something you just turn off.
Yeah.
You know, you like you it's like you've replaced yourself with your roles.
Yeah.
And so this and Joker, it's like, and that's unfortunate that, you know, that they, you know, you see some that obviously can just, it's just a role, you know, but some, they leave a lot of their soul on set. And it's sad when, you know, when we lose them obviously too early, because they're just as dark, you know, outside of the you know, the film lights.
Yeah. I mean, Pauly Shore is another actor who just gets so lost in the performance that you forget who he is, and you see the toll it takes on him.
Well, Carrot Top knew when to step back.
You know, after being the chairman of the board.
After being chairman of the board, he's like, "Oh man, I can't subject myself to this level of drama anymore."
And you know, self-preservation.
A lot of self-preservation there. So, you know, Clint Howard is one that can turn it on and off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one moment, like, he's the dentist.
Yeah. He is the ice cream man. Like, I see it.
Yeah.
So kudos to like a Clint Howard. Granted, he grew up in the family, you know, like Ron, he learned from his mistakes. You know, he saw, man, he doesn't have any more happy days left in him. Like
none whatsoever.
So
his development was arrested.
Yeah. So he took the higher road of like, I'm going to learn. I'm gonna keep myself. He's partitioned his mind.
Yeah.
There's actor brain, and then there's Clint Howard.
And then there's Clint Howard. Again,
poor Heath. Heath couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it.
I know. I've kind of joked a couple of times that like we need to subtitle each episode with like just a dumb line that comes up organically. There's actor brain and there's Clint Howard brain. So that's my first good.
There you go.
Heath Ledger's acting. My second good is, and again, I intentionally skipped. I kind of glossed over the scene a little bit earlier because knowing full well I was going to come back to it here. That scene. And in Jack and Lorraine's household at Thanksgiving, wow. Oh, that was a validating scene and probably the closest thing to humor in this movie as well. But again, Jack had been just dismissed by his father-in-law, by his mother-in-law. You could tell Lorraine was uncomfortable with it, but she never stood up to her parents for Jack either.
Right.
And so basically they're at Jack and Lorraine's for Thanksgiving, and it's the five of them. It's Jack, Lorraine, their son, and then her parents, and it's the five of them there. And Jack brings in the turkey. You know, he even mentions, you know, Lorraine was worked, you know, all day in the kitchen for this, and he goes to carve it, and his father-in-law just stands up and just takes the knife and fork out of his hand. I'll take care of this rodeo. Lorraine admonishes their son for the football game because it's Thanksgiving. The Cowboys are on, and this is Texas. So, like, you know, the Cowboys game is on in the living room, and it's within eye shot of the son. And instead of eating, he's watching the game. And she tells him, like, we're going to turn the game off unless you start eating. And so Jack just gets up to back her up and just goes and turns off the TV. And the father-in-law, LD is his name. Yeah. I don't even know if they mentioned what the LD stands for.
I don't know,
but
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he gets up and he turns the TV back on, and he just kind of mutters under his breath as he sits back down, "Boys should watch football." Yeah. Jack gets up again, turns it off. LD gets up, turns it back on, and I think Jack or LD gets up to do it again. Yeah. And Jack finally he just slams his hands on the table. And oh god, let me find the scene here. Oh, he just goes.
He does. He does. He rips him a new one.
Yeah,
well deserved.
just screams at him like sit down, you old SOB. And he put him in his place, and then Jack picks, and I love the ending. Jack picks up the knife and starts carving the turkey.
Yeah, like, I'm the man of this house, not you.
Oh, I love that scene. By far my favorite scene that didn't have Heath Ledger in it.
Right. It was about the only scene that didn't have Heath Ledger in it.
But just so validating. I felt so good for Jack in that moment. And even Lorene, too.
Yeah.
Because she was kind of hiding as, like, it cut back to her at one point, and she's kind of hiding a smile. Because she's never had the courage to stand up to her parents. Right. So good for Jack in that moment. And then, quite simply, my last good is love is love. These characters clearly love each other, and although there was more to it, the fear of being outed, the fear of violence was at least in part why their love wasn't more publicly consummated. And and again, there's a lot more to it than that. Don't get me wrong, but that was part of it. Ennis's fear of violence. He literally saw it with his own eyes. Right. This could happen to me. This could happen to Jack. I could leave my daughters without a father. Yeah.
That's a lot of weight. Like, just to, it's just awful. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Love is love. Oz, what are your two bads?
My first one is that it was hard without it being stated, and some of the scene changes. It was hard to determine the passage of time in this movie because it really didn't have a huge effect on the main characters.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
It was a change in automobiles, or like Alma Jr. growing up. Like, other than that, Jack and Ennis, because this isn't Boyhood by Richard Linklater that's filmed over 12 years, like, their character, it was just subtle changes. And so that's my first bad, is that it was hard to pick up on the nuances of how much time had passed because our main characters weren't affected by the time change.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, it kind of shocked me when it was like, oh, it's been 4 years since Brokeback, but said, before Jack's first trip to see Ennis. And I'm just like, little things like, oh, well, we know it's been a year because Jack went back to Randy Quaid, and it's like, it's been 4 years. Oh, it's been 20 years. Like, that passage of time was hard to follow.
Jack pulls up in his pickup truck to Ennis's apartment 4 years later, and he's got a beard down to his waist. Oh, it's been 4 years. That's a 4-year beard right there.
And Alma Jr. shows up in a Cybertruck, so we know.
They should have just verbally acknowledged at the time, man, it's been 4 years since we've seen each other.
Oh, it's been 20 years since my first summer at Brokeback.
Man, you've really grown a lot over the past 8 years, Alma Jr. I think that's how movies should denote the passage of time.
Yeah. Well, like comic books. Like, before you jumped on, I was reading some X-Men, and it's kind of eye-rolling, but it's just the comic book atmosphere of, you're seeing these characters in major action battle scenes, and then you see their thought bubbles that are like fully formed thoughts and sentences. And I'm like,
complete sentences.
You're not thinking like that. Like, But you got to keep your readers engaged. So I think actors should do the same.
Yeah, as Cyclops is shooting optic blasts at Apocalypse, he's like, man, I wonder what Jean Grey's up to right now.
Exactly. I must do this to preserve the safety of my fellow X-Men.
Exactly.
No, you're not. You're not thinking that.
No, you're shooting your optic blasts at Apocalypse.
And so I think if you don't have the benefit, if you have a movie that's time frame takes place over the course of at least 1 year, because you can get away with it with seasons, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But if the chronology of your movie is going to extend beyond 1 calendar year from when you started, your actors must, like early 90s rappers would do, you must state the year that you're in. Like, it's 1994, and then you start.
Maybe they could have used major historical moments, like, man, hey Ennis, did you see that moon landing?
Exactly.
Can't believe Nixon's out of office. Did you see the stock market crash?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I wonder who shot JR. So yeah, you gotta have some sort of checkpoint for us to follow.
I love it.
My second bad is just the divisive acceptance of this film.
Yeah.
Like it's so worrying how when a film like this comes out with the subject that Passion of the Christ is another one that kind of splits things for lack of pretty much down the middle. Like you're gonna have divisions, and the people all think they're right.
Yeah.
And when everybody thinks they're right, it's because there's no right.
Yeah.
Like there is no right answer. Now you and I know there's a right answer.
Yeah.
But that's our right answer. And I'm not giving credence to people who disagree with us, but in their mind, I'm right, that's wrong. And so it's so hard when you're walking down the street, you're at school, you're at work, you're at the grocery store, and when there's no hot topic conversation going on, everybody's normal. Everybody's the same. Everybody's alike. When I'm passing somebody in the cereal aisle, I don't think about what their thoughts on homosexuality is. I don't think about what their thoughts on abortion or education. I don't, because it doesn't matter in that moment. Like I'm shopping for cereal, they're shopping for cereal.
Yeah, we're both buying Fruity Pebbles.
Right. But when something like this comes up, or any other election topic.
Yeah, that's I was waiting for that to come up.
When any of those come up, suddenly everybody's swords are out. And instead of focusing on the commonalities that they have, they use their differences to define them.
Yeah.
And so a movie like this, it hurts in that it's like, if you didn't enjoy it, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But when you have to then, or if you did enjoy it, that's fine. But it's just when it's prickly, because when you don't know everything about everyone around you, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I get along with, my uncle, it's my favorite uncle. And then you see what he's blowing up about Brokeback Mountain and his thoughts. And then suddenly it just erodes some of that. And so I think art is wonderful for that, but people just need to do better of realizing that your reaction to something is not necessarily your definition of yourself. Yeah. You don't have to define yourself based on that reaction, and people don't have to define you based on that reaction. Like I said, your third good, love is love. I 100% agree. Like, and my hung comes up to it, comes here in a moment as well. But it's like just seeing the split, just seeing the hate of people come out. It's like, like there's no room, and like, shut up.
Yeah.
Just shut up. Like have your thoughts, but keep those thoughts in your head. Like,
you don't have to verbalize those.
No, you don't have to act on them. You don't have to verbalize them. Like I used to tell my students when they'd get something would come up and they'd get all in a tizzy. I would always pitch the other example. I would say, when you walk down the hallway, do you like seeing Joe and Susie making out at their locker? And every kid's like, no. And I'm like, why not? They're like, because it's gross. You shouldn't do it. I go, it's no different. It's not a matter of that it's happening. It's that we're being subjected to it. And who cares? Like, because I would have students that would just be like, that they would just feel like, this is my pulpit. I get to say what I want. I'm like, no, it's not happening in front of you. Now, don't get me wrong. If something like that was evading my personal space and I was uncomfortable with it, I'm uncomfortable with it. It has nothing to do with who you love or how you love. It's the fact that you're on my couch at my son's birthday party. Stop.
Yeah.
I would tell a husband and wife to stop. If my nephew brought his girlfriend over and they started making out at my son's birthday party, stop. It has nothing to do with my acceptance of you and your love. It has everything to do with the social faux pas. You don't do that at a birthday party. Just stop. And so people, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, have a hard time separating the two. I'm like, what is it? Like, it's happening, guys. It's happening all around us.
But something just nipped at my value system. I must therefore respond to it.
Right. Like, and some people, they it's like they're like Nintendo's Kirby. Of like if it's in the area that I have to respond.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't. You don't. You just look the other way.
Yeah.
It's fine. And so I know that's kind of a long-winded bad, but it's like just people who feel like I have to let the public know my response.
There's an entitlement there too.
Yeah, and it's just gross. And just if you don't like it, whatever. Like I'm not just whatever, but just shut up. Yeah. Like, you're not changing anybody. You're not gonna, you're only souring people, people's opinion of you.
Yeah.
So that's my second bad.
All right. Well,
what do you got?
My two bads. I'm going to start with how did Crash win Best Picture over this?
It didn't. I'm sure you read in the trivia that like Hollywood Reporter or something. I guess they reached out a couple of years later to like all of the voters, and like after they retabulated or whatever, like it didn't.
Yeah,
Hollywood was just afraid to let the gay cowboy movie be the winner. Yeah. Crash wasn't even the second best film that year.
I don't remember what was up that year.
I'll look it up real quick.
I did see Crash. I've seen Crash once. I think it was in the theater, so it's been about 20 years. I don't recall it being a bad movie.
Right.
It tried to tackle some things with some mixed results. Had some interesting casting in some roles as well. But this is clearly, again, not that, I don't know. Sometimes I struggle with like ranking movies against each other, right. Having art compete against art.
Yeah, but the five movies that year were Crash as winner, Brokeback Mountain, Capote, Good Night and Good Luck, and Munich.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Brokeback Mountain is the superior film to Crash.
Yeah, and it's especially and it's one of those two. Not that it doesn't always go hand in hand, but like you gave Ang Lee Best Director.
Yeah,
you're the best director this year, but just not for the best film.
Yeah,
like I mean, just typically those two go.
Yeah, those align more than they don't. Right. So that's my first bad.
Philip Seymour Hoffman beat Heath Ledger for Best Actor. George Clooney beat Jake Gyllenhaal for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah. My other bad is just quite simply, and this is one of those, it's a lot easier for me to throw this out from the pulpit, living life by shoulds. Like when that word should can often have a much more negative connotation to it than I think we realize sometimes. And
a lot of fear involved with that word.
Yeah, and there's often judgment involved in the word should. You should do this. You should act this way. And again, not always, depending on context, but like that's one of those words that I listen for just when interacting, not just professionally, but even personally too. When I hear the word should, my radar, goes up. And Ennis, for better and for worse, lived his life by shoulds and didn't allow himself the opportunity to try to live life at its best and be with the person that he loved and who was, I'm going to use kind of a cliched term here, but his soulmate.
Yeah.
And just be happy. So that's my other one. And again, that's a much easier one, again, for me to say, but especially in the context of this movie, but just in general, living life by shoulds.
Right.
All right. Hey, Oz, what's your
It's pretty just like, why? I mean, we're 20 years later. It's like, why does love still have so many hurdles?
Yeah.
Like it's so like hypocritical and condescending where nobody wants anyone to stand in the way of their love.
Yeah.
Like no one does.
My version of love is superior, and morally better, morally superior than your version of love. Well, between two people. And
I don't even necessarily mean on a larger societal scale. I even mean just as simple as on a individual, when it comes to what I want in my life is love. Like, I don't want anybody's opinion on who I choose as my wife or whatever. But, and no one does. Like, honestly, no one should. But yet everybody is quick to flip that over and be like, let me tell you what's best for you.
Yeah. This is what a relationship looks like. And you're not doing that. Therefore, your love is less than.
Yeah. And so whether it be on a global scale of, I'm not homophobic, but
I can't be homophobic. My best friend is gay.
Right. I've got a nephew who's gay, so I'm not homophobic. Yeah, your nephew hates you, because you're homophobic. But even on, like I said, it's just, why does love have to have so many hurdles? If you love somebody, love them.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have anything to do with the neighbor. It shouldn't have anything to do with the government. It shouldn't have anything to do with religion. Just, if you love somebody, love them.
Yeah.
If you are, if I love hearing those stories of people that quote unquote swim outside or swim in a different pool. Like, I think Matt Damon's one, but like Matt Damon met his wife like at a bar or something like that. Matt Damon was already Matt Damon, and his wife was, she wasn't a celebrity. She didn't play in that field. She was like, a bartender, a teacher, something lesser than, than a Hollywood star. But it's like, for him, it's like, whatever. Like, I love that. I love those stories of people that are like, I don't care, like, if I make a
go ahead.
I just do. I was just, I love those stories of people that are like, this is what my heart wanted. And so I didn't care.
I think I read a couple of weeks ago, Lana Del Rey got married recently, and she got married to a guy who gives swamp tours in one of those fan boats.
Good for her.
Yeah.
I do. I just, when I don't know. I mean, we could go on and on and on. But, but it's just, if you love somebody, love them. Don't. And that's, that's something that it's one. We're old people now, to where we are now at the level that like teens don't listen to us.
Yeah.
Because we're adults. We're too old.
You're an old.
And so that would be one like wisdom I wish I could bestow upon the youth of today of like if you've got a crush on that girl that's not in your social circle, go for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because your social circle isn't going to stay your social circle. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I like hearing those stories of people that went to high school together and reconnected later. And they're like, yeah, well, we, never really talked to each other in high school because, we weren't in the right social circles. And I'm like, good for you guys, because you got a second chance. You got an opportunity. And I do, because I was that. I wish I could have, granted, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely in the spot I want to be in, but it's like, I remember back in high school having a crush on somebody who I didn't pursue because I was worried how it would be perceived or something like that. Yeah. And it's like, you just, whatever,
I mean, as humans, we don't like rejection.
No, that's true.
And we avoid rejection. I'll be quick with this, but again, at the time of this recording, we're in January, and I've been in a lot of senior classrooms over the last couple of days, trying to empower seniors to apply for scholarships and do things like that. And and so like the point of this is, one of the big, again, I'm a college career counselor at a public high school, and and every year I struggle to empower seniors to apply for scholarships. And again, and one of the reasons is that I'm convinced of this, that there's a psychological reason why, and it's similar to this conversation. We don't like being rejected.
Yeah, I don't want to lose.
And so to avoid being rejected, I just won't do the thing in the first place. Like,
that is the story of my romantic life.
Yeah, I'm going to preserve my sense of ego.
Yeah.
And not put myself in a position where I can be rejected by,
Right.
in this case, an organization or institution, let alone kind of the example you've been giving, like romantically.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so, you just try to, as I'm sure you do, it's like, you don't have it. Like, so you can't lose it because you don't have it. So all you could do is gain from this.
Yeah.
I was the same way. Like I took a chance on the Golden Apple Scholarship in high school. And I'm glad I did, because I mean, it was a windfall for me financially, in education, and really shaped who I was as an educator. But I remember I got just your college form letters, and it came from North Central College, and in it was a pamphlet for Golden Apple. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh, education sounds cool. I got my one of my high school teachers to nominate me, and then even then when I got it, I was like, do I want to write 6 essays? I remember that, like, I don't want to write 6 essays. And then I convinced myself, like, this is $28,000.
Yeah.
Like, it's just 6 essays. Like, I'm going to write 6 essays in the next 3 months anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like, so here's a chance of $28,000. And then even then, when I got the acceptance packet, it came in a packet. Yeah. And, my mom's like, did you win? And I just, even before I opened it, I said, they don't send this big of a packet to the losers. They send you a letter. Like this was
card.
Yeah, this was like pick up at the desk of the post office, because we can't fit it in your P.O. box. Like,
they send the postcard marked deceased, like the one that always got.
Exactly. But she's like, did you get it? Did you win? And I'm like I repeated, I'm like, they don't send this much to the losers.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's not much else to say.
Yeah. And so but no, it's for those of your students that are listening this far into this podcast, just go for it. Really, you honestly have zero to lose other than a slight bruise to your ego.
Yeah.
But the financial gain is, and in other words, it's the same theory playing the lotto. Just do it.
Yeah.
Play the lotto as often as possible.
Yeah, as often as possible with as much money as possible. Yeah.
It only increases your chance of winning, because like they say, you can't win. You can't win if you don't play.
Yeah. That's brought to you by the Illinois State Lottery.
Who finances your public education.
Ironically.
So what's your was that your
No.
Okay, I didn't think that was still my
No. Your my is, I'm gonna go a lot lighter than yours, my friend.
Fair enough.
How would your insides react if all you ate for several weeks was canned beans?
I think Blazing Saddles showed us that scene.
Ending where we started.
Yeah.
More beans, Mr. Taggart. I was joking with Patreon subscriber Melissa L before recording, as I often do, to just kind of put myself in the right mind space. And it's like, with a movie as weighty as Brokeback Mountain, how are we going to make this fun? It's like, I think I'm going to make beans my through line.
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of beans in this
at the beginning of the movie, even Jack was complaining, like, man, I'm sick of beans.
Right.
No wonder his tent was so warm when he invited Ennis in, after Ennis was shivering outside.
Come on into this Dutch oven.
Oh man, it is warm in here. It's rank, but ooh, it's better than shivering outside.
I can taste it.
Love tastes like Bush's baked beans.
The dog and the kerchiefs over there. What is that, Jack? Brown sugar hickory?
Those were the nicknames they had for each other.
Brown sugar.
They're just after Bush's baked beans.
Brown sugar and hickory.
Yeah.
Oh, that wraps up Brokeback Mountain.
Yes. Oz, what do we got next week as we continue Ouch Month? What movie will ouch us next week?
Next week we are going to be physically hurt by the film Scarface. Yeah.
More of the aftermath.
You've experienced the ouch already.
Yes.
And you're living with the residuals of Scarface.
So we've had Whiplash so far. We've had Jawbreaker. We've had Brokeback Mountain. Those would all hurt.
Yes.
And this time we're going to have our face scarred.
Yes. So Scarface will be next week's movie. Yes. I think it's going to bring out the exact opposite type of person that would be watching Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, that is an understatement. Yes, they're both kind of epic movies.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, a lot of time passage,
a large chunk of their life.
Luckily, Al Pacino tells us how many years have passed in every scene.
Man, did you see the Dodgers win the World Series here in 1988?
Right.
Oral Hershiser really threw a gem.
Did you catch that Kirk Gibson home run? Boy, I sure hope the Bulls can three-peat again.
Dennis Rodman in a wedding dress.
Oh, I know what year it is. Yeah. They just... Actually, luckily, though, they all could just say what Best Picture winner is playing at the local drive-in or whatever, so that we know. But no, next week we're talking Scarface.
Yeah.
The like you said, the epic story of Tony Montana. I almost said Jackie Daytona.
Jackie Daytona. Oh my God, that is one of my favorite episodes of What We Do in the Shadows.
It's a great episode.
Jackie Daytona.
Yeah, it's a
normal
bartender.
Human man.
Oh yeah. Every time since that episode, I've thought like Jackie Daytona and Tony Montana.
Yes, they're interchangeable. Jackie Daytona.
I would love to remake Scarface with Jackie Daytona
with Matt Berry
yes.
in character.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Social media wise, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We also have these planned on YouTube if you want to check those out. So like and subscribe if you're there. Again, another shout out to Chicago Indie Critics.
Yes.
I feel that a lot of the movies we cover on our show probably don't pass muster with said critic organization.
Yep, I think this is the exception. I
would
say this one probably does.
This one is definitely an exception. And so, yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about Scarface for another episode of Let's Talk About Flicks. I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you guys then.